We use money literally every single day, but isn't it weird that it never came with an instruction manual? Well, let's fix that. Consider this your official user's guide. We're going to break down the essential rules of the game so you can navigate the whole financial world with a lot more confidence.
So here's our game plan. First up, we'll look at where your money goes the second you earn it. Then, we'll pull back the curtain on the system you trust to hold it. After that, we're going to uncover money's secret engine for growth and decay. Then tackle the big invisible forces that shape our economy, and finally, we'll talk about the single most valuable asset you have.
All right, let's start at square one. For every single dollar that comes your way, there's a line of people waiting to take their piece. And you know who's always first in that line? The government.
You've been there, right? You work hard all month, you get that exciting email saying you've been paid $2,000. But when you actually check your bank account, it's only $1,456. What gives? While federal tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare, these are the invisible hands that take the very first bite of your paycheck.
Now, it's really easy to feel like taxes are just a raw deal, but here's a different way to think about it. They're literally the price we all pay for a civilized society. This is the money that funds the roads we drive on every day, the schools our kids go to, and yeah, even the health inspections that make sure our favorite taco truck is safe to eat at.
And, the government doesn't just take one slice, it takes a few. There's income tax on what you earn, sales tax on what you spend, and something called capital gains tax when your investments make a profit. On top of all that, you're paying into Social Security, which is kind of like a forced retirement plan, and Medicare for healthcare. It really seems like they get a piece of the pie at almost every single step.
So okay, once the government has its share, your money needs a safe home. And that brings us to Section 2, the banking system we all trust to hold our cash, and that often misunderstood number that kind of governs our financial lives, the credit score.
When you deposit your paycheck, you probably imagine it sitting safely in some giant vault, right? Maybe with a dragon guarding it. But the reality is way more active. Banks are basically financial matchmakers. The second your money lands, the bank keeps a tiny fraction and lends the rest out to someone else. This whole system, it's called fractional reserve banking, and it's what keeps money flowing through the economy. It's the engine of growth, but it's also built completely on trust. Trust that we won't all show up and ask for our money back at the exact same time.
And speaking of the system lending money, when it's your turn to borrow, how do lenders decide if you're a good bet? Well, they look at one key number. In this analogy, it's just perfect. Your credit score is like a pet dog. Take good care of it, and it can help you do huge things, like buy a house. But if you ignore it, well, things can get pretty messy fast.
So how is this all-important number even calculated? It's not magic. The biggest piece of the pie, as you can see, is your payment history. Simple question. Do you pay your bills on time? That is number one. The rest is a mix of things like how much of your available credit you're using, the age of your accounts, the mix of loans and cards you have, and how often you're applying for new credit.
The score itself runs on a scale from 300 to 850. If you fall below 580, you're basically a walking red flag to lenders. But if you can get yourself above 750, you are sparkling with what we might call adult credibility. You've basically proven you're trustworthy with other people's money.
Okay, so your money gets taxed, and the system you trust to store it is actually putting it to work. But that system isn't the only thing that can make your money work. There's a secret engine that can work for you or against you. That engine is interest. And putting it on your team is what we call investing.
You see, interest has two totally different personalities. When you're in debt, it's your absolute worst enemy, a slow burn that can turn a tiny mistake like a missed credit card payment into a raging financial fire. But when you're investing, it becomes your best employee, a time bomb that quietly turns small, consistent gains into massive wins over time.
So here's the crucial point. The only difference between interest being this destructive force or a creative one is who's collecting it. Are you the one paying it, or are you the one earning it? The choice is entirely yours.
This brings up a critical challenge, though. There's another force that's constantly working against you, a silent thief called inflation. It's always eating away at the value of your cash. So how do you fight back?
The answer is investing. It's how you make your money stop lounging around and actually start working for you. You can buy stocks, which are just tiny slices of ownership in a company. You can buy bonds, which are basically just loans you make to a government or a big company. Or you can buy funds, which are like pre-made baskets of stocks and bonds, or even get into real estate. The goal is always the same, to turn the money you have into more money.
All right, now let's zoom out a bit. Your personal financial situation doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's constantly being shaped by these massive invisible economic forces. So let's talk about inflation and its moody cousin, recession.
We mentioned inflation,
But what is it really? It's simply the slow, steady erosion of your money's purchasing power. That $5 bill in your wallet will always say $5, right? But over time, it buys you fewer tacos, less gas, and a smaller bag of chips.
And this process isn't random. It's all part of a cycle. Think of the economy as a massive party. In the boom phase, the party is absolutely raging. Then at the peak, the lights start to flicker a little. Then comes the bust. That's a recession, when the music just stops and jobs can disappear. And finally, there's a reset, where everyone starts planning the next party. It's a painful cycle for sure, but a natural one.
This brings us to our final and probably most fundamental section. We've talked about how money moves and how it grows. Now let's talk about what it actually is, and what asset you have that's even more precious.
Okay, you ready for the weird secret about money? It's not really real. A dollar bill is just a piece of paper with some ink on it. It only has value because we, as a society, have all agreed that it does. It's a social construct, a shared belief that lets us trade and organize our society efficiently.
Understanding that really helps us focus on what truly creates wealth. It's not some get-rich-quick scheme. Just like the slide says, wealth isn't built in days. It's built over decades. You know, most wealthy people didn't win the lottery. They just consistently invested their money and gave it decades to grow. And that brings us to the most important point of all. More valuable than any dollar is the one asset you can never, ever get more of: time. It is the magic ingredient that makes all of this, especially investing, work. So the real question isn't just about what you're going to do with your money, it's about how you will invest your time.